Hello. In this short talk, I'm going to be speaking about yoga and the Bhagavad Gītā, and especially about how it relates to sovereignty, authenticity, and authority. So, yoga doesn't really give us the answer. Yoga is far too realistic, far too pragmatic, far too wise to offer definitive answers. What it gives us instead is a very robust frame for ongoing inquiry. It gives us a structure, if you like, to ask useful questions. And one question that yoga asks us is, are you really being the author of your life to the degree that you really want? Are you claiming authority for your own experience to the degree that you could, that you can, and that will allow you to enjoy life and relish life and learn from life as best as we possibly could, or as best as we possibly can? Are you living as authentically as your heart and soul long to? So, the way that the question lands with me is, would you like to lead an authentic life? Yes. Would you like to be steadily established and relaxed in a place of authority for the quality of one's own experience? For me, the answer is yes, I would like that. But is this always the case? Perhaps not. But yoga is the practical school of Indian philosophy, so it tells us how we can invite more of this authenticity, how we can claim or reclaim authority, and then become more the sovereign of our own life, which is what Krishna really urges us to do in the Bhagavad Gītā, to be the sovereign of our life. So, one of the ways that an advanced state of yoga is sometimes described is with this Sanskrit word kaivalya. And kaivalya means to stand alone. But it's not lonely. Kaivalya is a state of all oneness, or at-one-ment. It's a state of togetherness. It's whole. It's complete. So when we're in a state of kaivalya, a state of all oneness or at-one-ment, we are attuned. Our vehicle in which, through which, with which we experience reality is in a state of congruence. And in this state of at-one-ment and attunement, this allows authentic action to flow through us more easily. The idea is, the more that we're established in that state of at-one-ment or all oneness, the more clear, balanced, integrated and harmonious the field of our being is, then the more we are attuned to the clear guidance of the pilot of our conscience. And when we're more connected to the light of our conscience, when, because of that at-one-ment, that wholeness, that fullness, the guidance of our conscience is less impeded, less influenced or swayed by the accumulated veilings of our conditioned ideas, then we can act more authentically and more skillfully. So our actions, they can flow authentically more easily. Now, action is a very key teaching in yoga, a very key focus in yogic teaching, especially from Krishna in the Bhagavad Gītā. So in the second chapter, when Krishna gives basically the overview of the whole teaching, he lays out the foundations of karma yoga, the way of action, and then elaborates this very beautifully in the third chapter. So in the second chapter, Krishna says basically, human being, when you're a human being, what you do and how you do it, well, that's up to you and no one else. So our actions are our responsibility. That said, we have no control over the outcomes or fruits of our actions. However, that does not mean that action is something to be careless about. It's not, oh, it's just my karma, I can't do anything. No. Just because we don't have control over the outcomes, it doesn't mean we cannot learn from experience. The basic yoga practice is to pay close attention, to observe, to look. How does the quality of my action affect how I experience life? So we can learn from past experience. We can notice that if I act from a certain place or a certain type of motivation, it tends to bring what we might call bitter fruit or barren harvests. For example, I've noticed in my own life, if I enter into action from a place of confused motivation, it tends to bring more confusion. And similarly, when I take an honest look at the track record, when I look at what I've done, I notice too that if I act out of pain or woundedness, it just tends to beget more pain. So, our actions are our responsibility. We have no control over the outcome, but we can make a conscious decision to avoid sowing seeds that would perhaps bring unnecessary bitter fruit. And it's not like not acting is an option. Nobody stands outside the field of action even for a moment. Just to maintain our physical body, we're obliged to act. So action is inevitable. And yoga is very practical. So yoga says if something is inevitable, don't get down about it. That just diminishes our capacity to deal with the situation skillfully. So instead, yoga says, whatever comes, meet it as skillfully as you possibly can. Meet it from a place of the greatest balance you can muster. Meet it as far as you can with even-sightedness, resisting as far as possible the tendency or the temptation to lapse into habitual, partial, prejudiced patterns. So, in order to do that, in order to maintain that even-sightedness and that balance, I have to really do my best to be present, to claim responsibility, not just for what I do, but where I'm doing it from. What's the quality of my motivation? But yoga also reminds us we often have a lot more agency than we allow ourselves to admit. So it asks us the question, are you really claiming authority or authorship for the course or quality, for the course of your own life or the quality of your own experiences? And when I look at my own life and I look at the patterns of behavior, I might notice, well, sometimes I let myself fall into a place of lesser authorship, co-authorship, in which the direction or drive of the narrative of my life isn't really reflecting my own authentic desires or the qualities that I really want to bring forth, but it's also being shaped to a significant degree by parental or familial or societal forces. And it doesn't always stop there. Sometimes it's more extreme. Sometimes I might notice, or anybody might notice who's practicing and paying attention, wow, sometimes I kind of slip into autopilot or a less conscious place, and then it's like somehow in my own life I become a minor character in this narrative that is being driven by external influences of the time, by the people around me, by the currents of the media, by the influences of the advertisers, and by the inertia of my accrued conditionings. A minor character in my own life, in a narrative that I'm not really taking authorship for. No, I don't want that. And so yoga says, and Krishna says this very clearly in the Gita, you have to assume captaincy for the ship on which you will navigate the different currents of life. Krishna makes it clear in the Gita, don't be like that ship on the water without a captain, with its sails up, blown hither and thither by the changing winds, carried here and there by the shifting currents. Instead, you are the skipper. Remember it. You are the captain of your ship. You need to claim that sovereignty for the direction of your own life. Really, you are the author of your own experience. And so, in a very beautiful, a very practical, a very resonant and memorable way, in chapter 3 of the Bhagavad Gītā, Krishna elaborates karma yoga, the yoga of action, and how we can inhabit more of that authority, how we can bring ourselves into greater at-one-ment, into greater all-oneness, and in that more balanced, integrated state, live a more authentic expression of our true individuality. And he teaches us, or gives us very practical teachings that we can work with to move towards a state of true individuality, where we're no longer so subject to being divided or split by the different winds or currents that we might be exposed to in life, and rather from a steady seat, a yoga asana, we might say, of balance, integration and harmony, we can, like a seasoned skipper, navigate the storms of life and stay relatively balanced. Stay on course in the type of direction that is nourishing for all parts of ourself and which allows the authentic longings of our heart and soul to be expressed and shared. Thank you.